teleSUR English, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas. To start tonight, the United States is not ruling out having Cuban President Raul Castro at the White House while ties are still being restored after more than 50 years with the communist country. The US president has broad executive powers in which he can ease restrictions even if Congress objects. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said Obama would be willing to host the Cuban leader, comparing it to visits from leaders from other countries with checkered human rights records.
I guess the point is that the president has had the leaders of both Burma and China to the United States, and for that reason I wouldn't rule out a visit from President Castro.
Staying on the good news of the easing restrictions of Cuba, one of the key players in the negotiations, Pope Francis expressed his delight.
Tutti siamo contenti perché abbiamo visto come due popoli che erano allontanati.
Today we are all happy because yesterday we saw two nations who were estranged for so many years take a step to bring them closer together. This was achieved by ambassadors, by diplomacy. Yours is a noble, very noble work. I hope it will be fruitful and may God bless you. Thank you.
Lavoro nobile il vostro, tanto nobile. Vi auguro che sia fecondo, fruttoso e che Dio vi benedica. Grazie.
The joy of the move resonated throughout Latin America. Bolivian President Evo Morales declared it a win for Cuba and for the unity of the world.
Cuba enseñó, con bloqueo enfrentó.
Cuba taught with blockade and has won, has triumphed. We've all triumphed. It's so awesome. The 17th of December will be written in the history of humanity on how Cuba bent the US. Thanks also to the unity of the world.
Estados Unidos, gracias también a la unidad del mundo entero.
In Colombia, after yesterday's announcement of the FARC guerrillas announcing an indefinite and unilateral ceasefire, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos has refused to reciprocate the move, saying that he can't accept the FARC's call for international observers.
We value the gesture of a unilateral and indefinite ceasefire, but we can't accept those conditions, like those about international observers.
And to news just coming out of Venezuela. After relaxing sanctions against Cuba, US President Obama has signed legislation allowing him to sanction Venezuelan government officials. The bill authorizes sanctions that would freeze assets and ban visas. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro immediately replied to the move via Twitter. The first tweet reads here, and I translate. Today, President Obama made a mistake when he signed sanctions attacking our homeland, regardless of national and international condemnation. Then Maduro carries on. On the one hand, he recognizes failure of the aggressive policies and blockade against our sister nation Cuba that has resisted and overcome with dignity. And finally, he tweets. On the other hand, he puts in place a myriad of fresh aggressions against Bolivar's homeland amid general rejection from our people. Obama signed another sanctions bill today, this time against Russia, but he noted that he had no intentions to immediately use the authority it grants. He said that further sanctions will be made in concert with European allies and that sanctions could be rolled back if Russia takes necessary steps. Russian President Vladimir Putin noted that this was a provocation by the West that is worsening their economy.
You said that Russia has contributed to the tense situation, which is currently evolving in the world. Yes, Russia has contributed to that situation, but only by harder and harder, guarding its national interests. We do not attack in the political meaning of this word. We are not harassing anyone. We are only guarding our interests.
В политическом смысле этого слова. Мы ни на кого не нападаем. Мы только защищаем свои интересы.
The United States will not support the current resolution put forward by the Palestinians setting the terms of a peace deal with Israel, a US official said Thursday. Washington has seen the text of a draft resolution circulating in the UN Security Council and said it was not something they would support.
We have seen the draft. It is not something we would support, and we think others feel the same and are calling for further consultations. The Palestinians understand that. You may have also seen President Abbas speak to this earlier today and have said they support continued consultations and are not pushing for a vote on this now.
In Mexico, parents of the disappeared 42 Ayotzinapa students once again led a march in the streets of Mexico City. However, this time they didn't take the main avenues in the city's historic center. Rather, they moved to the periphery and to the working class neighborhoods. Our correspondent Clayton Conn gives us more.
As 3 months approaches since the Ayotzinapa students were forcibly disappeared by police in Guerrero, Mexico's president continues to make the same promises.
This investigation should conclude with the unrestricted application of justice against those eventually deemed responsible.
Yet residents here in the Mexico City working-class neighborhood of Santo Domingo demand results that include but go beyond Ayotzinapa.
Neighbors from working-class neighborhoods joined this call for justice that is not just for Ayotzinapa, but also for all of us Mexicans who every day confront state violence.
As family and classmates of the missing students take over the densely populated streets, neighborhood figures say that in the end, the change needs to come from below.
We need to change many things, but the government will never do it, will never have pity on us. So we ourselves need to make the change.
For the father of missing student Julio Cesar Lopez, the search for his son and struggle for justice will continue with or without support from the authorities and with no day off.
We will not rest, nor will be able to celebrate this coming Christmas with our sons.
It is expected that in the coming days, the parents, classmates, and supporters of the disappeared students will announce their agenda of actions for the holiday break. Clayton Conn, teleSUR, Mexico City.
In Syria, the diplomatic activity underway in the Middle East is bringing hope that the coming new year will see advances towards a settlement in that nation. We go to Nashwan Abdullah for the report.
The Syrian government, with help from her allies, has showed during recent years its absolute willingness to cooperate with all the sides to put an end to the Syrian conflict, without conditions and without foreign intervention.
The Syrian political movement is noticed internally and internationally, and the sides that support the armed gangs are known.
Meanwhile, Syrian army operations against the terrorist organizations have covered various areas of the country. According to one source, a number of terrorists, many of them of non-Syrian nationalities, were killed on Wednesday, adding that the army destroyed a cache that included dozens of missiles and Israeli Lao rockets.
Terrorism, as I said, does not know Syrian schools or Saudi schools or Turkish schools. They will come to them. And we understand that all of us in the international community have to unite our efforts to combat terrorism and to stop terrorism. Financing terrorism and arming terrorism will backfire and go back to those systems, political systems that are supporting terrorism.
On the streets of Syria, there is a hope amongst the people, Syrians, that free from outside interference, they can put in place an agreement that will end the current conflict. Nashwan Abdullah, teleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
To end on a jolly note here, in the heat of the Rio de Janeiro sun, Santa Claus traded in the chimney for a more extreme arrival this Christmas, ziplining down the city's iconic Sugarloaf Mountain. Santa flew down to the city to a crowd of parents and children. Traditional family celebrations for Christmas take place on December 25th in Brazil, the largest predominantly Catholic country in the world. More on these and other stories on our website, telesurtv.net/English. I'm Sarah Bagan for teleSUR English. Good night.